All right, good afternoon. If you are joining me live, Dashian Miller here from Warrior Concepts here in East Central Pennsylvania, and we're here with this week's episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. If you're not joining me live, it's still me, and it's still from Warrior Concepts. Anyway, so we record this live so that folks can kind of jump in and kind of, we do it like a class, okay? But then it's always out there for everyone else, right? So anyway, the training for this week is on training for failure. And of course, we do this, and then the Friday class, right? Our Friday master class springboards off of this topic, right? So I got a lot to throw at you in a short amount of time, so we might as well just jump in, all right? So we're looking at training for failure. And so again, this is in an advanced area of Ninjutsu training for self-defense and those kind of things, right? But in all honesty, just like Hatsumi Sensei has always talked about, it's not just a good martial arts idea, good self-defense idea. It's a good life idea, okay? So what we want to take a look at and what we want to get through today is understanding the inevitability, right? Failure is inevitable. Well, that's bullshit, Sensei. What's up with that, right? Well, such is life, right? One of my mentors has a saying for us, right? Embrace the suck, okay? There's lots of other things we could talk about today. If you caught this week's Kuden podcast, then you know where this started anyway, right? And if you missed it, no worries. If you're on the YouTube channel, you can always go to the live tab and just look at the previous training from this one, right? And you can go through that. And if you're on Facebook, you can go to the Kuden podcast page, Facebook page, and it's sitting there waiting for you as well. Anyway, so a lot of folks would like for things to be perfect and to work out just right, and the laws of the universe should be suspended for them. Well, because they exist. Well, it just doesn't work that way. And if we're attacked by somebody, they have a brain, right? They don't want to get damaged or killed or whatever any more than we do. They'd like to do the beating, right? Anyway, so we're going to go through a bunch of these things, but the whole premise of all of this is understanding that failure is inevitable. And I have multiple points to go through. Just kind of broke it out here a little bit. What I want you to see is that we're going to take a look at three, what I call BS. I almost call them deadly beliefs, because in the context of this realm, they can be, right? Take a look at three beliefs that martial arts and self-defense students often have that can cause them to absolutely, no matter how good they are in the dojo, crash and burn against somebody that wants to do more than what your uke might do in the dojo, okay? And then this section right here is all together, okay? So we're going to be reviewing something. We're going to be answering a question like, how do you even train? How do you train for failure? What the hell's that, right? We've done other classes in the past where we took a look at more often than not where the bad guy, right, is jamming up your technique. It's still a sense of failure, right? But he's countering things, right? So we have one we just did recently here called countering his counter, right? So he tries to stop your technique, and then you have to counter that to get back on track or to win, right? So the same thing here, okay? Yes, there are all these neat little sayings and whatnot that it's never really failure unless you quit or you get killed, that kind of thing, right? So we're going to take a look at a framework that we use for our students here at the Academy so that they can understand where they are in the context and the dynamics of an actual attack situation, right? Where are they? Sorry, I think my little RoboVac here just tried talking to me. Anyway, I don't know if I gave myself enough room or whatever. I'll probably take a picture of this and make sure that it goes out or it gets posted somewhere, or we'll make a worksheet that folks can sign up for and grab. But I've got way more in my notes than I've got space for here with these. So just kind of, if you have the ability to take notes, that'd be great. But because there's so much, when we get over to the how do I train to handle the kind of failures that could end up at each of these phases, we don't have a lot of time. So what I'm going to do is narrow it down to one, and then during the Friday masterclass, then we'll take a look at least three of these and training drills that you can do to be ready for that kind of thing. Okay. All right. So that being said, again, before we get started, don't forget, like, share, subscribe. You know the drill, right? Help other people find this stuff. Okay. So let's start with the problem, right? Many martial arts students and self-defense practitioners make one or more of three mistakes. They have this belief about, right? Something that's really critical in a bad situation, okay? Or what their training is all about and what it's going to do for them or give them, right? And these beliefs are not just wrong, right? These beliefs, and they may not be evident in class, right? If everybody's playing along with the same thing, we have a saying in our dojo that we don't want to get caught up in being a part of the mutual admiration society, right? And that means, everybody's doing things the same way, and we're all, congratulating each other. Oh, good technique, man. Oh, that was awesome, and right. And nobody's pointing out, your distance or your angle was off, and I can tag you, okay? That kind of thing. So, but whether they're evident in class or not, these things, if we have them and we don't neutralize them or get rid of them and make sure that our training is accounting for the reality of a situation, no matter how good we are in the dojo, no matter what our belt color is, level is, whatever, okay, these things could absolutely cause us to crash and burn in a real situation against a brutal attacker, not your uke, right, not your training partner, against somebody who absolutely wants to beat, break, or kill you, right? Maiming falls into breaking, okay? Anyway, so what are some of these deadly beliefs that we need to avoid? Well, like I said, there's three. Where's my pen? There we go, okay? So first one is that once you learn your cool moves, right, you'll be invincible. That means you can't be defeated. You can't be broken, whatever, okay? For those of you who studied Ninjutsu, and you're in this with me, right? Or just those, you're in martial arts and you like martial arts movies. Remember the old Sho Kosugi movies way back, right? 80s, 90s, that kind of thing, right? There was a saying that kept popping up in these movies, right? Only a ninja can kill a ninja. Bullshit. Okay? Ninja can get run over by fucking cars, shit can fall on them, all kinds of stuff, right? That leans into this invincibility kind of thing, and people buy into that shit. But it doesn't have to be about ninjutsu. People buy into that invincibility bullshit all the time, right? If I get good at my techniques and I smooth all that kind of stuff, then I'm invincible. Bullshit. Somebody can shoot you from across the street, right? Bomb can go off in the building you're in. I mean, we live in a dangerous world, okay? Don't forget the little viruses and shit that are floating around this time of year as I'm recording this, right? Flu season, COVID's back, all that kind of stuff, right? Some people are shitting a breadbasket, and others of us are like, yeah, that's what happens this time of year. It's kind of like, it's cold in the winter and it gets really, really freaking hot in the summer. Unless you're in Australia, in which case it's hot in the summer and then even hotter in the fucking winter. Anyway, so the key takeaway that I want you to have here is that you're easy to kill. Okay? But that's not just you. Me too, right? We're all easy to kill, right? And so what we need to understand is that the purpose of training is supposed to make you harder to kill. And if you're really focused on things, the goal is to be the hardest person in any room or environment to beat, break, or kill. Okay? That doesn't make us walk around, this kind of thing. It's about developing things, and it's not all skills and it's not all strength, right? We've covered a lot of these topics: resilience, adaptability, flexibility, those kind of things, right? Being able to think quickly on your feet. I have a new book coming out here in a couple of weeks. Actually, I have one coming out this week on one of the elements in the Togakure Ryu's 18 areas of training, the Seishin Teki. And the ebook lays out the 11 areas of training that I pulled from a certain period, right? Of course, they changed over time and whatnot, but there are these 11 things. And they're not the same. While there is some crossover and whatnot, they're not the same as the warrior's virtues that a lot of people have up. But that's in there as well. And then there's, when this thing comes out, there's also a companion audio program. It was actually a class I taught with my inner circle guys that people can get if they want it. It's one of these optional things, but it goes into the virtues, but then it compares the virtues and these areas of study and development: this personal development, spiritual refinement, personal clarity. Really difficult to put a label on it because of these 11 different areas, right? But comparing like the samurai virtues and the Seishin things, and understanding, like, one, there's major crossover. I think I compared 8 areas and how they're different, right? But either way, there's another book coming out later on the Ninjutsu Uge, right? And this was about a lot of these skills that just allowed a shinobi warrior or a ninja to survive situations where combat wasn't involved. And again, we keep going back to something that Hatsumi Sensei has always taught, which is that this is not just for success on the battlefield, this is for success in life as well. Okay? So anyway, first one is this belief in we're just going to be invincible. Once we get good at this stuff, then we can't be beaten, broken, or killed, which is bullshit. Okay. Number 2, well, actually, I have a second takeaway for that one, which is failure is inevitable, right? We already talked about that. Okay. So this is what screws so many people up, right? Not just in the martial arts, but in life, right? And that's also why one of the key skill sets of a ninja, okay, is this idea of adaptability. Okay? People talk about being flexible, and I'm adaptable, but we're talking about adaptability and the ability to operate across many different types of environments, many different types of situations, many different types of problems, whatever. Okay. All right. Anyway, so let's jump to number 2. Okay. So BS, or deadly belief, number 2 is that the techniques in my chosen martial art or my self-defense system are unbeatable. Okay? So the techniques are unbeatable. Okay? I know they look the same, but they're not. This is about me and what the training will do for me. This is about the techniques. Okay? Well, again, we just did a training recently, and we've done them over time on this idea of countering the counter. That, like, we're not fighting a moron, we're not fighting a dead person, right? They're not gonna. I remind my students of this all the time, right? Being careful about certain things and being mindful about certain things, and making sure that they're controlling the space around them. They're controlling the distance, the timing, the angling, that kind of stuff, right? Because there's only one person in this entire universe that's going to allow you to do your techniques on, and that's your uke, your training partner, in the lower levels of training. Okay? Nobody else in the world is going to let you use this stuff on them. No one. Even somebody says, "Show me something." Okay? They're gonna, as soon as it gets a little weird, they're gonna either try to escape from it, they're gonna try to counter, or somebody, you just started class, right? Or you just came from a seminar or something like that. And inevitably, we all have a jackwagon friend like this, where they go, "Oh, like, did you learn to show me something?" And you go, Okay, yeah, grab my wrist. And he reaches out, pops you in the head, and goes, see, that shit don't work, right? We all have friends like that. And if we don't, we're them, okay? We're the person jumping around on videos online, knocking everybody else's shit, but we don't have any videos to show for it ourselves. Because if we did, I don't know about you, if you do have videos, that's time-consuming stuff. I don't have extra time in my life to go around knocking other people's stuff, right? I'm busy trying to help other people learn, okay? I don't care if anybody believes that my stuff doesn't work. I don't care, right? Strong, confident people, I don't care, okay? Anyway, so here's something that is actually a test question for ranking for my students in our curriculum. There's a question. Now, it comes in the context of dealing with a knife-wielding attacker, right? So you're dealing with somebody with a blade. But the question is, what's one thing that you have to, one thing that you can guarantee, right, will happen if you are facing a knife-wielding attacker? But this is true for anybody, right? Somebody who wants to punch you, kick you, shoot you, whatever. What's one thing you can guarantee? You're getting cut. You're either getting stabbed or you're getting cut, okay? If it's against somebody who's punching, you're getting hit, right? Kicked, whatever. But here's the thing, right? The takeaway that you should have is that your job is not to not get hit, not to not get cut, not to not get shot, not to not, right? As soon as some people hear this, right, they automatically think that I'm acting in a defeatist way, or this is like all this training is bullshit and it's not going to help you anyway. No, it's a fucking fight. This person has a brain and they have intention and they probably have a shit ton of experience, and probably more experience than most of us do, at actually taking somebody out of the world. Right? I am a combat veteran, and I have experience in certain realms in the world. I was also a military cop, which means that 80% of the people I arrested were trained killers, which means that sometimes things didn't go well. Right? However, what I mean is that if we're not talking about somebody who's just getting drunk on a Friday night or a Saturday night and wants to just get into a fight for bragging rights or whatever, we're talking about somebody who, they want way more than that, or they're not going back to jail or whatever. Right? We'll talk about these guys again. I'll make mention to these as we go along. Right? They probably have more experience and more willingness, more intent to do that. Right? So we have to be careful. Okay. So the takeaway I want you to have for this one, again, is it's not your job to not get hit, cut, shot, stabbed, whatever, right? Your job is to not have those things happen to the extent that the TV gets turned off. Okay? That's just the reality of warfare. All warriors who died back in the day all had scars, right, from near misses. Near misses is like, flesh, but didn't get the organs that were going to shut you down permanently. Okay. So again, we got to be really, really clear about this stuff. Okay. That means that shit happens and there's little failure points that we still have to survive against. Right. Here's the good news. The good news is you can train to be able to win anyway. The bad news is it might not work out. Okay. All right. Anyway, third BS belief is that I'll have the advantage, right? I'm trained. I have a gazillion level black belt or whatever, right? But I have the advantage, right? This is that cocky, like, I'm a 18th, 100th degree black belt and whatnot. Say something to me, I'll kick your ass. And I don't know that I don't know this guy doesn't have a friend sitting on a bar stool right there. He's going to let his friend do his thing, but if his friend starts losing, this guy will just shoot you in the face or come up behind you and stab you in the kidney. Okay? So there's lots of reasons that we develop certain traits like, I don't know, respect and whatnot, right? But if we're in a self-protection situation, I don't mean a fight. I don't mean like, it's two bulls going at it and we're going to see what happens, or what, fighting over the girl on Saturday night. Okay. I'm talking about something that Hatsumi Sensei always made this reference to, right? Real Budo, right? Life or death, Okay? It's a very different scenario. Okay? No attacker. So I try to make a very clear distinction between a fighter, not that self-defense people and martial artists and whatnot don't use fight techniques, that combat's not involved in whatnot. My students also have to answer the question, what's the difference between a fighter, a soldier, and a warrior? Okay? But I always try to make a clear distinction between a fighter, somebody, an opponent that you're matching up with, right, and an attacker, an assailant. Okay? Very different. But no attacker, no assailant, right, cuts you from the herd and decides to attack you because you have the advantage, or they even think it's a fair fight. It's not the way it works. Okay? And if we think it does, then we've probably only ever been in bar fights, or we've been in high school, pissing contests and things like that. Okay? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's not the same as being in a scuffle with somebody and them drawing your weapon, and you have to do everything you can to keep the bullet from entering your head when they pull the trigger. Okay? I don't know how many of you can relate to that, but that's one of my personal stories. Okay? And it was head movement, immobilizing the weapon just long enough, and immobilizing the weapon in a way that when the round went off, it didn't chamber another round. Okay? So when I tell people that powder burns are overrated, the bang in your ear is overrated, and all that under the adrenal response, I'm not just repeating somebody else's words. Okay? So the takeaway that I want you to have here is that you need to assume that if somebody's approaching you, right, that you need to assume that your situation will be at best even. But it's been my experience that if they are a killer, if they are a gangbanger, if there's someone who's not going back to jail, if there's someone who just feels like they have nothing to lose, right? There's some people out there in the world. I was just watching a video clip. It was an interview with a former, if there's such a thing, former mafia cleaner, hitman kind of thing, right? And he was talking about what made him, what allowed him to survive, and what made him good at what he did. Okay. And it was that from a very early age, when he ran away and he was growing up on the street, he knew that he could die at any day. Right. But there were two things. One is he had zero value to his own life. He could die at any day. So he had I don't give a fuck attitude. Okay. So how do you defend against somebody short of, right, Final Fantasy kind of thing, right, where there is nothing below removing him from the world, because he will keep coming. It's like the Terminator. He's going to keep coming, because unless you kill him, and he knows he could die any day. So zero life value on myself if I were him. I'm talking as him, right? Zero life value, and I don't give a fuck. I don't care what you do to me. If it doesn't kill me, you're still a target. Okay? Very, very different, right? Very different. Okay? So if we're dealing with somebody like that, right, you're fucked. Okay? And you need to find your way to that 0 point before you can even move forward. Because they come already with all the advantage. You don't have even, you have, right, in this case, algebra works. You are negative numbers, and you need to get to 0 before you can even, right? You need to neutralize that advantage before, right? So it's not just going to go sideways. It's fucked before you even realize that you're a target. Okay? So not cool. Okay. So the question then becomes, how do we train for these kind of things, right? How do we train for failure, right? What kind of failures, right? When might something go amiss? When might, what do the failures look like? When might they happen in the context of an engagement, right? That kind of thing, right? So again, hopefully you can see at this point that this is why this is an advanced ninjutsu self-defense thing. In the earlier stages, absolutely, learn your damn techniques. You have no business looking at other stuff like this other than a reminder that I got to get my shit together and make sure my techniques are right and not just good enough. Okay, good enough. The dojo is getting. You might as well just be as lucky as people don't train out on the street. Okay, so hopefully you're able to see this is not as easy as the wannabe masters make it out to be, or the guys that are selling the 1 to 3 techniques. Buy my course. I'm going to give you 1 to 3 techniques, and in 30 minutes you'll be able to defend against any attacker. Okay, if you bought those, hopefully they're collecting cyber dust on your hard drive. Right? I had somebody one time want to get into a discussion about how about the philosophy of the ninja and these different principles and concepts, because he had everything and he had the manual and he was this high-ranking person, and he made reference to something that kind of seemed a little off, right? And so I ignored him for the longest time, and finally I had to say, give me a historical reference, an authenticated historical reference, and not, I'm just blank, right? That's some online teacher's thing where they made up this fucking course that was in a book that had barely 50 pages in it, and the book came with a master's certificate or a master's degree as a part of the book. I said, please don't mention this. Didn't hear from him. Okay, so anyway, but how do we do that, right? How do we this is not an easy proposition, okay? And here's something else I want you to understand, because we have learning the techniques, but we also have using the techniques. And I see these two things as very different skill sets, very different abilities, okay? I see training to learn and develop skills and techniques, right, that I'll be able to use, right? I see that as input. I go to class and I'm learning this stuff and I do practice and whatnot, right? But there's a certain paradigm, there's a certain way that we learn that. And it's input, right? We're loading up, right? Kind of like Neo getting jacked in the Matrix and stuff and loading up on all the weapons, or Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Commando getting off that dinghy and just loading up with all the stuff, right? I see that, right? And surviving a dangerous or deadly attack in the moment, in the environment you're in, against that specific attacker, those dynamics, those kind of things. That's output, right? Your ability to produce results as two very different things. It's just like learning a foreign language, right? Being able to understand a native speaker at normal tone, not the same as being able to be understood. Understanding, input. Being understood is output, not the same. Most courses that you buy or you get involved in are focused on this. But then a lot of these people, they go through the whole course and they're really good. They can read the stuff, they can go through, and then a native speaker starts talking and they understand like zero, right? Because they spent no time just immersing themselves into listening. Like I have a podcast that I'm going through right now, just these short little things, and each one's on a topic, and I just put it on for background noise, right? Because I want it to get in. And the more I listen to these things, the more words, word combinations, word bundles, context, and those kind of things start popping up. But when I first started learning it, right, I have gone through the Pimsleur course, I've gone through all kinds of things. And I learned sentences, and I learned word substitution, and I learned how to say certain things. When we go to Japan, I know enough Japanese to not get lost, okay? But when somebody speaks, I'm picking up like bits, and I get the gist to get instructions because they're making gestures and all that. But like listening to a podcast where there's no video, there's no action, there's no context, right? And so I just recently learned that that's a huge part of it. But that was the front part of our learning the language that we speak when we were kids, when we were babies. It was just a bunch of random noises going on, and over time we made sense and understood. But it took longer for us to be able to name things, use proper sentences and all that kind of stuff, even without going to school, and learning grammar and all that, right? We would say something and parents would say, no, that's this, right? But it looks the same. And I know there's different types of those, but it's still this kind of thing, like a tree, right? And then we graduate to pine tree, elm tree, oak tree, right? Okay. Or they're just different trees, right? So anyway, so before we can answer the how do we train to handle failure question, we need to look at and understand what failure can look like at different points in a situation, right? You can't fix something that you don't know what it looks like when it's broken. Okay, it's kind of like if I were, and I don't work on cars, but if I were working on my car, let's just say I'm checking the oil or whatever, but maybe I'm replacing a part. I haven't done that since I could crawl into the engine compartment, not because I was thinner, but because now engines take up the whole freaking space. Anyway, now let's say my 5-year-old grandson, Stellan, is next to me, right? And he wants to help, so I'm having him hand me tools and things like that, right? He's learning a screwdriver from a whatever, right? And so I'm in here, and I'm working on fixing this thing, and he says, Grandpa, why don't you just unplug that wire over there and plug it in over here? Why don't you just take that thing over there and put it over here, right? I'm not going to get into an argument with him, right? I'm just going to go, buddy, that's not the way it works, okay? Because he doesn't know how that engine is supposed to work. He doesn't understand the parts. So understanding is a huge part of this, right? We can't fix something that we don't know how it's broken, right? If we try to do it, it's kind of like people that learn like a bunch of variations to techniques. Henka, 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 henka. Or Sensei was still teaching, right? Back in the day, he'd be at a certain point in the technique and go, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. And then I see videos online and people are doing that. They'll go, you can do this, you can do that. When would I do any one of those variations? Because they're not equal. There's certain conditions that would allow that to happen. It's kind of like the kamae, doko no kamae, right? I've seen doko no kamae like this, which is very much, if I put my thumb here in a shitoken or a boshiken, this way, right? In Gyoko Ryu, this is called soko no kamae. So anyway, but we've got this thing where it could be here, which is where we start our students. It could be up here, it could be back here. And I've been to seminars where people like are doing it, right? Somebody says doko and they take up the way they do doko. And, again, this is way back in my training where I'd ask somebody, like everybody's doing it differently, which is the right one. And they go, well, you can pretty much do it any way you want. While that's true, if your life's not on the line, but there's a very different reason why they'd be in this hand would be in these different positions, right? Same thing, I'll turn a little bit this way, right? Is it this way or is it this way? Is it static or is it kind of moving like I'm threatening to throw something at him? Right? Very different, right? So yeah, henka, variation, based on context, based on desired outcome, based on the type of control I'm trying to assert. Not just a blanket, you can do it any way you want. Anyway, all right. So yeah. Anyway, again, all this stuff is leading to it. And again, this is the strategies and tactics. If you want to actually see how the drills are done and all that kind of stuff, you can get enrolled in our Friday virtual training, Friday masterclass. Everything's set up over there now. You can go now, but I would highly recommend you stay on the training unless you're just going to watch the recording later. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to start by reviewing for some of you, it's a review. For some of you, it's new. What we call our 5 phases of strategic self-defense action. It's a framework, right? And so any given content, any given situation can be broken down into 5 phases. This is not 5 steps. If you notice, Soke, Daishihan, master teachers and whatnot, somebody may throw a punch or whatever, and they do like 1 move, 2 moves, maybe 3 moves, whatever. They don't do all 5. Okay? Well, what gives? Well, these are phases, and as one gets better at things, it becomes more and more possible for these phases to be combined. Okay? So we'll lay them out, and then what I want to do is I want to take a look at problems that can happen, failures that can happen in each one, and then because of time and me trying to get this back to a 40-minute to hour training, we're just going to pull one mistake, one failure, and look at a way to train to be able to recover from that. Okay, not eliminate it. Well, it will simultaneously eliminate things, but that doesn't mean that failures won't happen. Okay, I could be trying to do what I'm doing. He could be trying to do what he's doing. I could get out of the way, and he could slip, and somehow that throws, like his reflex action ends up hitting me, and then that throws me off, and then that gives him an in, and all kinds of stuff. Right? This is not as cut and dry as people would like it to be. Anyway, very, very quickly, the 5 phases of a strategic self-defense or an effective self-defense action are discern, right? Defend, no, this is not you whipping his ass. Disrupt, oops, sorry, already have a D. Disrupt, deliver, and discern. Nope, I didn't have a little mental lapse there, right? So at this stage, what we're doing is we're paying attention to what he's doing. We're paying attention to a lot of things. Okay, it's clothing, all kinds of things. I'm going to make these a little bit more fleshed out from the negative side here in a minute. But we're basically paying attention. There's a whole bunch of things we could be paying attention to, right? I'm going to give you anywhere between 4 and 5 very quickly in each of these things. But the ones I'm giving you are where shit can go wrong, okay? So discern. Defend is neutralizing the effectiveness or the force of the thing he throws at me. I could evade it, avoid it, I could block it, whatever. What I basically do is make that attack null and void. I make it moot. It has no effect, okay? And again, it doesn't matter if he grabs me and tries to pull, push. It doesn't matter if he tries to hit me, kick me, or whatever. I don't end up with a broken kamae. I don't, whatever, right? I don't get myself stuck. I neutralize the force and the effectiveness of the technique, okay? Now, let's be very, very clear. Fights don't happen step 1, step 2, which is why they're not steps, okay? We could be paying attention. He could throw like 2 jabs and a hook, right? And all I'm doing is evasion, which means I discern, defend, and I don't move to disrupt until there's an opening or he makes a mistake that I can catch. Disrupt is breaking his balance, physically, mentally, emotionally, hopefully all 3, right? So what disrupt really is creating a condition where he can't go on the way he intended. Either his body's in the way, his brain glitches, his emotions, right? His state breaks, you break his spirit kind of thing. And there's this stall or there's this moment, right? One of my guys described this in a class we were doing where we were playing around with this idea. And this guy is a combat veteran. He's a Marine. And he said there was a point in there where, as my uke, right, he knew he had to throw the punch so I could demonstrate the technique. But he didn't want to throw the punch. Okay? And then he knew he had to. But when he threw it, he could feel that anxiety and that trepidation and that lack of intent literally affecting how his muscles were moving and how he was doing things, right? It's a really cool thing. Anyway, I know for a lot of people, this is just BS, woo-woo kind of thing. That's fine, okay? That's fine. They can believe whatever they want, right? They can not believe in gravity for all I give a shit, okay? So again, this is not necessarily linear, right? The kata show this. Sometimes the kata will throw 2 punches, or there'll be something where you kick him away and then he comes back. Okay, like the difference between the koto and gyoko kata, keto and ko, where like one's like the ideal, but in the other lineage, when we do the finish that should knock his ass back and down, he recovers that and comes back, right? So that's kind of like that counter to counter kind of thing. But in this case, with those 2 jabs and 2 hooks, maybe after the second hook, I kind of find the perfect thing, his balance is off, or I can do something, or what I do with the hook breaks his balance. So now what we have is discern, defend, disrupt. And as long as that stays off, then deliver is executing on our technique. Our Ganseki Nage, our Shito to the neck, our whatever, right? But if I do this and he catches himself and then throws something at me again, now discern, defend, disrupt, shit, defend, okay? And it might be another defend, disrupt, deliver, and now he's down and out on the ground. And then this discern here is a post assessment. This one is, what can I use? What kind of situation am I in? What's the environment like? Clothing, my shoes based on the floor we're on. I remember telling somebody one time, this military guy got himself in major trouble, and get back to the MP station, and I put him up against the wall to search him, pat him down for weapons, and he's just all dressed GQ, right? He's got the boiler hat on, he's got this suit, and he's got the GQ shoes, you know, the dress shoes and all that kind of stuff, except we're on a tile floor. So I had to borrow another military police officer to come over and put their boot behind his shoe, because when I put him in the search position, the way the soles of the shoes were based on the tile, he was sliding. Right? And I didn't put people into search positions that were lazy and slack, where they could easily come off the wall. If they tried to come off the wall to come at me, go for a weapon, or escape, they would slide face first down the wall. Because all I had to do was take a foot away. Right? So again, this is thinking ahead, tactically, strategically, as opposed to just picking something because it's our preference. Okay. So these are the 5 phases. Okay. So what we could really say here is we are tuned in and paying attention. Right here, we're neutralizing the forces of his attack. Right here, we're unbalancing. We give students the 5 Ds because it's mnemonic. It's easy for them to remember. Okay, unbalancing. Here, we're taking the fight to them, which is what everybody wants to rush to, which is another one of those fatal flaws, right? And then here is an assessment afterwards. Assessment afterwards, right? Is he down and out and unconscious, or conscious, or he's got his hands up like, I'm done, right? Or, and I can have him locked up as well. Or is he getting up and running off? Or is he down? 2 friends just came at you. Or is he getting back up, and while he's coming at you, you realize he grabbed a hammer off a table, whatever. Okay? In which case, this D becomes the first D in the next engagement. Okay? No, you are not going to think about this left brain in a fight. It happens too fast. We give students this to get them there quicker, so they understand these, and then they work these until they know by feel, by intuitive gut feel, where they are. But they could make a mistake. They could think that there's an opening for this, and that move fails. And now they get to get their ass out before they get jacked. Okay? So what kind of failures are we talking about? Okay, I apologize. I have a whole bunch of lines, and you know what? At the moment, I don't feel like filling those in. So hopefully you have notes, and if nothing else, you have the recording afterwards. Okay, so at the discern stage, right? Not paying attention, which means he got in range and ready to go and started things before we even paid attention, right? We got popped first before we realized that, oh shit, I'm being attacked. Okay, if we're still awake. Okay, we can make wrong assumptions. Okay, so part of the discern stage is paying attention to how he's positioned, and because we've done a bunch of research on different fight systems and styles and how they move, their stances, how they posture, how they position the hands, if they're a straight puncher or they throw things, position of the shoulders, right, lead foot, that kind of thing, right? So we have a whole bunch of information. We're ninja, for God's sake, right? We have a whole bunch of information about what he's probably going to lean into because, right, that's his preference based on all the shit that he's learned. That's what he's going to do, right? So he's going to punch a certain way. He's going to, right, those kind of things, okay? So I could make the wrong assumptions. I could read the wrong one. I could read boxer, but he's actually an American Taekwondo stylist, right? So they don't have the old, right, the original Korean stances. They have this boxing Taekwondo hybrid kind of thing, right? So I'm reading boxer, but I'm not paying attention that he's light on his feet, right? And the toes are pointing in a different direction than they would be for a boxer. And next thing I know, because I made the wrong assumption, I gauged the distance incorrectly because I was staying out of range for a jab. So he couldn't set me up for a right cross, and he reaches out with a roundhouse and pops me in the head. Okay, wrong assumptions, those kind of things, right? During this phase, unless it's a surprise attack where he comes out of a doorway or a vehicle or whatever and just hits you right off the bat, or grabs you in a bear hug, in which case, you know, you're in between here. Okay. If I have the time, this guy's moving in, he's coming up on me and whatnot, I'm going to do a quick scan. Okay. So, but if I'm wasting time, precious time, and I'm not considering clothing, the environment, possible friends that he has, even before this, right? Even before this moment, he's got a knife in his hand or whatever. And my failure isn't in the moment, but I recognize my failure because I didn't train for this. You know, not my job bullshit. Okay, that kind of belief system. The way that shows up in self-defense and martial arts is I call bullshit on, you know, nobody grabs in a fight. I've never grabbed anybody in a fight, so that just never happens ever, even though a lot of us have experience, not just with people grabbing us, but doing victims reports on dead people and broken people because some asshole grabbed a hold of them and then choked the life out of them, or grabbed them and pulled them into a punch, or pulled them into a stab, or whatever, right? But, you know, they just dismiss a whole bunch of these things, or look at certain skills and techniques and go, whatever, when am I ever going to need that? And then now they're face-to-face in a situation where that's the fucking answer, and they're going to die thinking or remembering, I ain't trained for this. Okay? And then the last thing I want to point out here is it's coming up on us, right? And we get caught up mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that kind of thing, in paranoia, or the opposite, which is hypervigilance. We're trying to watch everything. And so we're distracting ourselves. We don't know how to prioritize. Okay. So any of those, right, creates a failure where he gets to move in closer, whatever. Okay. We miss something. Okay. In the defense stage, what do we have here? Well, we have things like, well, we get hit. Okay. Kind of the bridge right here with the wages of sin or death. Sin means to miss your mark. Okay. So discern, we're not paying attention. So we don't even know we're in a fight. We don't even wake up to discerning until we've been hit once or twice or three times, and have to try to fucking fend this shit off, right? Okay. So let's see. Some other things are we didn't move fast enough to avoid. Okay. We didn't see it coming. We didn't manage the distance to give ourselves enough time to move. Okay? Everybody knows that we live about a quarter of a second in the past, right? As human beings, as long as our mind, our brain is of average function, right? We human beings live about a quarter of a second, about 200 milliseconds in the past, okay? What that means is by the time our sensory receptors, right? Eyes, ears, tongue, skin, whatever, we pick up on the stimulus from the world and it gets processed and an answer and not an answer. It gets processed and we recognize it to be able to make a decision, to be able to act, to be able to think about the next thing. It's about 200 to 250 milliseconds, which is just under to a quarter of a second. Okay. So we're time travelers. Okay. So anyway, right. So not managing the distance and he gets that shot in quicker or whatever. We do move, but we trip on something. It's absolutely possible, right? People don't recognize that when they're in soft sole tabi and they're on tatami, but there's potholes in parking lots, there's curbs. If you're in a grassy area, right, it may be uneven and stuff like that. So if we're not training in areas like that, then we don't teach the body or force the body to have to adapt, right, to have to figure that out, right? If we don't like to roll, then when we trip over something, probably not going to roll to recover quickly because that's the answer, right? We're going to fight to hold on to the clouds. And then the whole time we're fighting gravity and ourselves to not fall down, we're a sitting duck because we can't do anything else other than try to catch ourselves. Okay. And then again, that shock, surprised, that kind of thing, and we can't recover, or we have a delay in the recovery time. Okay. Part of the goal of training is to reduce what's these cognitive gaps that occur when you're surprised or something happens. So what we want to do over time, you can never completely get rid of them, right? So you reduce them to the smallest common denominator, right? And so that's the reason for training with kamae and being able to move in any direction and replace your flinch response with kamae, because what you want is your body. You can want whatever you want. What I recommend students should be aiming for is the ability that when you have that flinch response, that trigger, right, in the gap where your left brain takes a vacation and you can't make decisions, and when it comes back, again, about a quarter to half a second, right? What you want is your body to move, not just to avoid, but to move into a position where his next shots are harder for him. But you don't think about moving because it's in muscle memory, right? So you go from somebody sneaking up on you and they scream, you know, boo or hey or whatever, and you go from this kind of thing to, right, that kind of thing. Those are indicators that the kamae are in. And so one, you're moving away from danger, and two, you're able to move in whatever direction is necessary and into a position that covers, right, and makes his next move more difficult, right? Neutralizes things. Okay. Anyway, all right, let's keep moving, right? So in the disrupt stage, unbalancing, right? Yeah. Okay. So in the disrupt stage, we rush in to break his balance, right? We try to force something to happen, but it's the wrong time, okay? And we get hit, right? Or grabbed or stabbed or whatever, okay? We try to bull rush in, but there was no opening to move, right? To this point, right? It wasn't there, okay? So we either move too early, we move too late, whatever, okay? When we move in to break his balance, right, we break our form instead of his. What that looks like is if we were just doing something from kumiuchi, where I have his jacket, he has my jacket, I have his sleeve, I have his sleeve, he has my sleeve, that kind of thing. And I'm just doing an osotonage, so this great outer or rear hip throw kind of thing, right? What I see from people is when they do it, right, they don't keep him in front of them, right? So they allow the joints to fold. And so when they step in, what ends up happening is they step like this. So this guy's now here, and their shoulder and elbow is behind themselves. And if he's bigger and stronger, which we already discussed, most likely he will be, he can take you instead. Okay, so they break their form instead of his. Again, we could trip, we could slip, whatever. Okay, in our attempt to break his balance, right, and his flinch response, right, we could get hit, or his balance could break easier than we thought, and we end up breaking our own balance as well, in which case we have a situation where we're both trying to catch ourselves at the same time. And since we are both off, whoever catches their balance and can recover first in a solid, stable position has the advantage. Okay, so how do we, if our balance is taken, how do we reclaim it very, very quickly? The cool thing is that this is in the fundamentals of the art. As a matter of fact, most of these things are in the fundamentals of the art. This is the stuff that's not written down in the kata descriptions. You're supposed to know. Right? So just having the kata descriptions, just having the densho, nothing. Okay. All right. At the deliver stage, okay, we could have weak strikes, weak kicks, our technique. Right? It's not. We're trying to do something that we're just not that good at. Okay. There's other reasons why the fist and whatnot can be weak, and that rolls back to when we were talking about anxiety, fear, right, paranoia, or we're hyper vigilant. We're trying to watch everything, or we can't decide on a technique, and then so we just go for something, but the structure's not, it's not right for that one. And so, yeah, we tagged him. Or this is a really big problem that I see with students who come to me from having been in sport martial arts, where all they have to do is make contact and they get a point for that. Where their fists have bite on targets, but on people, not so much. So they don't have what they need to shut down, let's say, a 250-pound, 6'2" MMA fighter who's used to getting hit in the head multiple times a week. Right? That kind of thing. Right? So weak strikes, our nerves have us, and they're slowing us down. Or like my student experience, where he had to punch because he's my uke, but he didn't want to because he knew what he was going to be running into, right? Based on the training of that night. I think that was the night that I ended up with his skull in my hands, like a bowling ball. No, I didn't injure his eyeballs or anything like that. I moved them, right? But had him by the skull. Right? That's more than attacking the body. Right? That's attacking the mind. That's attacking the spirit. That's attacking that part of us that goes, fuck no, I want nothing of this. But that isn't going to do anything to that guy that had zero life value and didn't give a fuck, because he's going to work through that and try to kill me anyway, which means that's the beginning of the end. Anyway, all right. I might be here, let's see, in any one of these, but especially here, right? I might be telegraphing my moves. I might have tells, right? That allows him to evade or counter or whatever, because he can see it coming, okay? Or hit me before I can get it off, right? I might end up choosing the wrong, read that or hear that as a favorite technique. People lead with their preferences and all that, right? So instead of the technique that's appropriate to the moment for this person, his size based on my size, and where I need him to end up, and how I need to, what my strategy is to control this and end it and whatnot. And instead of operating from that level, I operate from this is my favorite, man. Or when I first started off, as soon as he punches me, man, I'm whipping a mushadori on his ass, because like I'm really good at those. Okay, so we end up choosing the wrong one, right? And then he jams it up. That goes back to that old stuff, right? Where he counters things, and then he locks me up and just pounds me in the freaking unconsciousness or the grave, whatever, right? Again, I could trip, slip, whatever, okay? And then at this discern stage down here, I could take my attention off of him too soon, okay? A lot of people break their mental attention on their uke or their attacker as soon as they realize that the throw starts working. Except that there's a lot of fight styles out there, and there are gymnasts and all kinds of people that while they're doing the break fall. And we have stuff like this in our Shinden Fudo Ryu, Tagagi Yoshi Ryu, Togakure Ryu, where during the break fall or during the throw, you counter. Pop his eardrums, knock him out, roll around and punch into something or draw a weapon or whatever, right? But we can take our attention off of them too soon. We can be not watching the environment for other threats after the engagement, right? So how often have you practiced that once you take somebody down, you put them in that lock, and instead of gloating, you actually practice to scan without letting up on the lock so that you can see if somebody else is coming at you, right? Either friends or Good Samaritan, okay? I've already pulled up on people that had protected their home, bad guy ran off, and they turn around, and I'm already like, my cruiser's pulled up, and I've got my weapon out, telling them, put it down, because I don't know who they are yet, right? But I'm the victim. Put it down, and we'll talk about it, okay? Because I don't know. When I just roll up, all I got was intruder, weapons involved, whatever. I don't have a description, okay? So cops should know, but really, okay? The cops at ESP, there'd be a shit ton of people in jail just for thinking about doing stuff. All right. So another mistake, right? Staying in the area, right, of the altercation as though you're safe because, like, I won that. Like, I did that, man. Check that out. Okay. Or here's a big one: shock or PTSD sets in. Right. You've done it, and then your system just starts to drop. You get dizzy. Things start to change. You lose focus. Those kind of, because, right, you watch the light in his eyes go out or whatever, and there's a system shutdown kind of thing, and then you're screwed, right? So how do you deal with that kind of stuff? Okay, so I remember training with Hatsumi Sensei more than once, where we're working on a skill, and well, one in general. This will just kind of jump out. We were working with the Shinobi Zue, right? The hollowed out bamboo that had this. In this case, it had long chain and this little weight on it. And we were practicing this technique where we're coming around, letting that shoot out, go across to him, come around and catch his ankle, pull him off balance, move in, that kind of thing, right? And so what was happening was people were doing it and they weren't getting the lock. And then they were just like, oh, and then they were coming back. And Soke's like, no. That's going to happen. You don't know that you're going to have perfect technique. He could move slightly. I mean, how good you are in the dojo, right? So you have to train for this. It's an inevitability, okay? The technique is the ideal. You have to adapt to the rest of it, okay? So how do we do this, okay? And again, I'm just going to pick something off of my little list here as I go down through each of these things. So let's see, where to start. Let's back up here a little bit. Okay, so in the discern stage, what I could practice doing, or we could set up drills where my partner starts a couple of steps away and he starts to move in and he simulates a certain type of attacker, right? So we're going to choose the wrong assumptions one, okay? What's the opposite of wrong assumptions? Clarity, right? And so if I understand that my kamae put my arms and limbs in different positions and cover for certain things and certain types of attacks, they allow certain types of attacks in so they can catch them, and they prevent other types of things from coming in, right? So my partner is going to think about, is he going to do Taekwondo guy? Is he going to do like collegiate wrestler? What's he going to do, right? And then as he moves in, he starts bringing his hands up, right, to this or to the karate position or to the Muay Thai position or to the boxer kind of position kind of thing, right? This kind of thing where the shoulders are rolled in, the lead foot the toes are turned in a little bit, that kind of thing. And so as he comes in, I start to recognize that, and I practice choosing which kamae will be the greatest impediment. So I start neutralizing his system, his fight style, before he even gets the first one off. Now he's still going to do what he does because he's going to try to break through, but That's for another day. Okay, so I can do, let's see, we'll just call it kamae matching. Kamae. Okay. So I'm going to practice choosing and using my kamae based on his posturing and what that tells me about what he might come in on. Okay. Now, if he comes around with a training knife, and I realize that he's got a knife, right? Then, I've got Jumonji, right? Yes, I'm getting cut. Okay. Jumonji or Hoko, right? But instead of doing Hoko this way, we do Hoko this way. Okay. Because yes, you can get cut here, but the muscles and everything here, one, you won't bleed to death. You could lose chunks of muscle, but you're not going to bleed to death. And of course, if we had a different type of environment, we might even take off the t-shirt or our martial arts belt and wrap it around the leading arm, hold that in place. So now we've got makeshift armor. Could be a newspaper, anything, magazine, wrap it around there, right? And then hold it in tight so it's there so we can cover the neck and the head, right? But while this will bleed, right? This will bleed. All the vascular stuff that's part of the life-sustaining systems are all here. And coincidentally, the muscles that allow for grabbing and making fists and whatnot are all on this side. Opening my hand is here, okay? So, but if I grab this way and then I just relax these muscles, my hand will open a little bit, right? And so, but making the fists, and then, see, that's a whole other thing by getting a Gray's Anatomy or some really good anatomy book to understand which muscles are required to make certain fists. And so if I'm damaged in certain areas, I don't waste time trying to make something I can't fucking make. And even if I can make it, if it's not strong, well then, right? Okay. So I can practice kamae matching based on fight style to fight style, right? There's another mistake that people make in this one is they see his fight style and then they match it, right? I've seen Bujinkan people spar against other people, and instead of staying low, right, this person's bouncing around and they'll start bouncing. Oh, shit. Okay. So anyway, number next, right, in the defend stage, let's do a drill where we practice evading and tripping. Okay. So we practice trip to roll. Okay. Trip to rolling. Okay. We'll put obstacles out on the floor and stuff, whether it's this little eraser, little markers that'll slide, flat pieces of paper on this indoor-outdoor carpeting, whatever, when people step back, or we can just kind of simulate it happening. But it's better when it happens as a surprise. But what we're going to do first is we're going to practice stepping. But Sensei, I don't like rolling. Sensei didn't give a shit. Okay, the bad guy hopes you don't have a full toolbox full of skills. Okay? And whoever said this was something you had to like? You like being attacked by a brutal killer who wants to remove you from your kids' lives? Okay. Well, that was a different answer. Well, shit. Okay. Anyway, all right. So trip to roll exercise. And again, I'm just randomly picking something in the disrupt stage. Okay. Let's see. We could just do a drill that we have called Sen Undo. Sen Undo is a kamae to kamae transition. Right, moving from one kamae to another kamae could be, right, when we introduce it in Mod 2, it's a zigzag kind of thing. But what we could do is just have our partner just throw a series of jabs, punches, kicks, and whatnot. And what we're going to do is practice moving and shifting in kamae, tai sabaki, to always move not just offline, but to where we have a target. And then what we might do is bump that up a little bit so that we move. And if we have the target, we just tap them. We just tap the target, right? Ribs, head, whatever. We're not trying to get the bite out of the strike or anything like that, right? And that's where we learn that almost is often not good enough. Or if we've got a tell going on and our partner buttons that up, right? So what we're doing is we're practicing discernment while we're doing things, okay? So that's that one. Delivering, right? What's a mistake in here that we can use? Well, let's just do that other one, right? This lingering mind, right? This is in the Seishin book that I've coming out this week. One of the things in the Seishin Teki Kyoyo is this lingering mind idea where at the end of a situation, right, you assess, okay? So we're going to do the lingering mind, assess the area. Okay? So whatever technique we're doing, I can do Ichimoji no Kata and knock this guy to the ground, but I'm going to shift quickly to look to see if anybody else is coming, or if I take somebody down, put him into a lock, right? I'm gonna shift engage. If I can't get all the way around, now that's an opportunity to learn how to go from locking the arm and the elbow with this leg, and then being able to shift and change so I can look in the other direction without, right? Or we could shift this into, and what students will ultimately get, because we have a couple of mirrors in the dojo, we have reflective surfaces, that kind of thing, is they could practice scanning the area, not ignoring the mirrors or reflective surfaces, right? And then we can add another level to it when they scan the area, okay? Maybe we put a student in who is a third person in that engagement who may or may not move in, okay, from whatever angle, okay? So they have to find them. They have to identify them. That wakes the brain up. And it also causes students to learn that when they scan, to also scan the faces of bystanders, because bystanders who are not a threat, but see a threat coming in, will look at that threat or be worried, right? There'll be this sign or signal that something is coming. And so I can step over this guy and see what's going on. So I just stepped out of frame. Sorry about that. And see what's going on. Okay. But again, these are not in the kata. Okay. Kata are ideals. They're a place to start. Okay. And so that leads us down to that final discerning, right? Which is paying attention afterwards. So this one, actually, what we might do with this one here is, actually, this belongs down here. So what I'm going to put down here is giving the partner the uke. We'll play a little game where sometimes the uke lets you deliver your technique, and sometimes the uke evades it, right? And then you've got to get back on track, or at least back away out of his strike range to reset the fight to zero. So you got to go back to that the counter training and stuff that we did, right? So I'm just going to put a counter kind of thing here. Okay. So we go from, and this is a randori kind of thing, not sparring, or randori kind of thing, where we've got this model going on, and then the partner decides when they're going to try to resist. Not too late, because if they resist too late, the technique will damage them. So, but we kind of play back and forth. So make sure that the student is paying attention during the delivery of the technique, and they don't get tunnel vision, right? So again, just one out of all of these possible things where failure can occur, okay? So again, if you want to see some of these, not necessarily these, but some of the training drills that I have planned and what they would look like, we'll be doing that during this Friday's virtual class, which is at 6 p.m. Eastern time. I get it. You might live some other place around the world or whatever, so you have to reconcile it. The upside is that anybody registers for it, it's $9 US, right? It covers my expenses for all this stuff that, people get the training for free, but people don't consider that I'm paying for all of these services that, right? And I know if you're watching on YouTube, well, YouTube is free, Sensei. Yeah, but the Restream service that I'm using, so it simultaneously goes to these places, and all the production and whatnot, not free. So anyway, $9 US. Even if you can't make the class, you still get the recording. Okay, so you don't have to miss the lessons. Anyway, but that is entirely up to you, right? But why would you not want to at least get it, so that when you're at that level, or when you're ready for it, or when you think about it, you can pull those lessons out, combine it with this, and be set to go. But again, I'm not you. You do you. I'll do me. You're not one of my personal students, so I'm not going to be insistent that you do certain things, unless you are one of my students, in which case you're probably taking this and thinking about how you can apply this in class. Okay. All right. That's what I have. Hopefully, I will see you for the Friday class. If not, maybe I'll see you on for the next week's Kuden podcast on Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if not, next week, same time, same bat channel, Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern for Warriors.